Good morning, everybody. My name is Jared O'Leary. I've been drumming since 1998, and I still got plenty of stuff to work on. In these practice streams, I'm sharing what I'm doing to try and improve as somebody who's been drumming for almost 30 years. In the timestamps of all these almost 500 videos, you'll find what I was practicing or what kind of a question I was answering. Think of this like office hours. I'm here to practice, and if people have questions, then I either point them to some resources that answers their question, or I answer it live on stream. Now, what resources would I point them to? Well, in this drumming tips playlist, there's over 16 hours of me responding to questions live on stream. And you can find them with edited responses, so it's nice and condensed compared to when I'm responding to it live. But the first thing that I talk about is whatever the topic is for the title. So, for example, tips for improving your buzz rolls. But if it says, and other drumming tips or and other teaching tips, that means there are more topics inside of there. Just use the timestamps in the description and it'll show you the different things that I'm talking about in case the title is not of interest. But there's literally over 100 videos in there. Tons of different topics. And by the way, from the teaching side of things, I've taught every grade, kindergarten through doctoral students. So I've had a range of teaching experience, not just a performer. Now, I'm going to get motivated here thanks to Shia LaBeouf. So Shia here is going to help me to get ready to play inverted triplet diddle. We're going to hide him because copyright. But he's here in spirit. Do it! Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it. Make your dreams come true. Just do it. Some people dream success, or you're going to wake up and work hard at it. Nothing is impossible. You should get to the point where anyone else would quit, and you're not going to stop there. No, what are you waiting for? Do it. Just do it. Yes, you can. Just do it. If you're tired of starting over, stop giving up. Oh, wow, Shia LaBeouf. I hope everybody's super motivated to practice. Sometimes I forget about that flex at the end. It makes me laugh. All right, now, on my YouTube channel's home tab, or if you go to the link that's at the top of the screen, or at the top of every one of the drumming resources that I create, there's literally thousands of free drumming videos inside of here. The chop section, it's got a bunch of stuff if you're on Drumline. I'd highly recommend checking out the Shopping Spree playlist. And by the way, you can't see that playlist if you're on YouTube. You have to click the header that says chops, and then it shows you all of these. Same thing with all the ones below here. There's also over 1,000 grid variations in here, 419 for triplet, 577 for 16th note. And if you're good at math, you'll realize that that's not 1,000. Then there's 36 other wacky ones like herd to grid in this one. But they're organized into different playlists. Like if you want to work on your flam drags, check out that one. But if you want to do flam drags at 16th note, check out that one. I'd highly recommend 1, marking time to it, and 2, focusing on rudiment on 1. There's a lot of wacky stuff, but you don't need to worry about the wacky stuff until you get rudiment on 1 down. Forward and backward. Do those and you'll be great. Yesterday I was practicing limb independence. There's 55 drum charts in here for straight and swung patterns, as well as some timing permutations that you can use to improve your limb independence. And every one of these playlists links to how to develop limb independence on the drum kit. It's got several steps that you can follow. And I've demonstrated all those steps live on stream and showed how I've gone from like not being able to even play the ostinato of a pattern to being able to sight read through these charts. So you can see the steps that I take for that, as well as some different types of patterns you can practice on the second, like 2/3 of the video. If you march bass drum, there's over almost 500 exercises in here. Focus on these timing ones, and then get into the splits timing stuff. There's drumline cadences and score format. There's over 200 sight reading exercises. There's over 400 technique exercises. And then there's over 16 hours of tips in this playlist alone. There's almost 500 live streams. And then there's all of these scripted lessons, like how to hold traditional grip, or the hand routine that I'm going to use to like stretch and massage here in a little bit, etc. Now, this playlist, the one that's the drumming tips playlist, this is the one where I was mentioning at the start that like people will come and ask me some questions. I received a really good question that I needed to take like a couple of days to like think through some of the nuances with. So it's on one of my videos. So if you can't like watch these streams live, you can reply to a video, add a comment on it, and I will like take some time to think through it and either point you to a resource, or I will like, hey, here's my answer to it. So the one that I'm actually going to be answering Let me pull up my notes. I wrote a lot of notes. Hopefully it all makes sense. And if it doesn't, like, feel free to just, ask questions about it. Okay, so just a quick disclaimer. Because I wrote, like, so many notes on here, I am going to take some time to, like, pause to, like, just, like, read through what I said, so that way I'm hopefully coherent enough to answer the question. But I will edit this response down and put it into a future drumming tips video, so stay tuned for that. It's going to come out in the future. So how do you help students who can out-chop you? Is it even possible, or are you wasting their own time? So I've been on both ends of the coin in this particular scenario, so I want to describe what that perspective was like from a student perspective and from an educator perspective. So when I was a student, I had a professor, Dr. Mark Sunkett, who was a phenomenal educator, and he had a profound impact on my own playing, but he could barely play anymore because of like some injuries that he received and just like arthritis and whatnot. However, studying with him helped me shift my focus away from performing to more towards teaching. So there's a couple reasons why for that. One is when I was studying with him, I got an injury in my arm that made it so I couldn't drum for like an entire month. I basically just had to let my left arm heal, specifically on the elbow. And so I wasn't able to practice. And in that moment, I realized like performance abilities can be taken away unexpectedly. And if that happens, like what do you do as a performer? Like if you haven't practiced teaching and hadn't done that for years, like what other options do you have music related? Like maybe composing or other things like that. But like if you just focus, like put all your eggs into one basket and you get an injury when it comes to performing, I've known too many professors who had to stop playing because of injuries like related to their instrument. But another thing is that he showed me the power of what a good teacher could do, a good educator could do, because I improved without him actually needing to be able to demonstrate anything on a drum. So he was able to just communicate clearly enough with me and teach me in a way that made it so that I improved as a percussionist without him ever needing to pick up sticks or mallets or whatever it is that we were working on together. So those, like that combo platter of having Dr. Sunkett as a phenomenal educator, and then also like that injury, it really shaped the future that I ended up taking with getting 3 degrees in music education as opposed to getting like performance degrees and whatnot. Now, I will say that like as a disclaimer, it's obvious that chops takes a long time to develop. It's going to take years of constant effort to be able to develop the skills to be able to play fast, play some like rudimental stuff, whatever, to develop your chops. However, I would argue that it's actually harder to develop an ear for what quality sound is than it is to actually be able to play fast. So because of that perspective, thinking that it takes instead of like several years or a decade, it might take a decade or 2 to develop that ears. His expectations for like what was possible with playing were much higher than my own because I just didn't know that it could be at like the levels that he was expecting from me as his student. And so despite me being able to outchop him, he had much higher expectations and was able to help me to elevate to a new level beyond what I was able to do when I first started studying with him. Now, one of the reasons why is because he has worked with like so many students over the years. Like he had been teaching for decades at that point. And so he knew many different ways to be able to achieve different kinds of results for different kinds of students who had different kinds of performance related things that they were like trying to improve, etc. But there's also more to performing than just performing. I'll get to that here in a second. How do I want to phrase this? So there's 2 different perspectives that ethnographic researchers talk about. There's a perspective, an emic perspective, and an etic perspective. So an emic one is like the insider perspective. So me, as somebody who marched on drumline, I have the perspective of somebody who's been in the activity, who has performed, and who has taught, etc. But an etic perspective is an outsider perspective, somebody coming in and being able to provide some outside contextualization and rethinking of what's happening from the perspective. Both of these perspectives are very valuable as a performer and as an educator, and they can both help the student. So it's kind of a mouthful of what's staying there. So let me try and unpack it a little bit more. So an educator, sorry, let me read through real quick. So an educator who has like been a performer knows what it takes to be able to get to a certain level. But when they've taught like many different types of students at different levels, they've also seen how others have been able to achieve the results that their like current students might want to do. So even if an educator is unwilling or unable to put in the amount of time to achieve the results, because like maybe they like know what it takes to be able to like play, I don't know, flam drags super fast or something. Maybe they just don't have the time for that. They're not willing to invest the time for that. They can at least learn how to do it from that outsider perspective, that emic perspective, by teaching other different people who are able to do that. And then they're able to take that perspective and apply it into the lessons that they are teaching and break things down in different ways that the performer might not be able to do. So if you are a student who is able to outperform or outchop your like private lesson instructor or whatever, they are still going to be able to likely have perspectives from working with many different students that they can provide to help you with your own performing. So it's not like, oh, well, as soon as I can play like a flam drag faster than my teacher, got to go to another one. Like that's not how that's going to work. They're going to be able to provide many different things to think through and to improve that are going to be beyond just like the thing that you're able to outchop them on. Now, I will say as an educator perspective, though, that the higher up you go in terms of like the abilities of the students that you're working with, the more likely the students are going to develop expertise in areas that are beyond yours. And that's just normal. That's totally okay. So the more students that you work with, the more context that you teach in, and the more subjects that you teach, it's going to help you to better understand and better be able to support the students that you were working with, because you will have worked with many different kinds of students. So even though like my 3 degrees are in music education, I've also taught computer science education and makerspace like classes. And I've taught every single grade, kindergarten through doctoral students. So like all of that range informs one and the other. So for example, if I'm working with like, I don't know, like a kindergarten class, that informs how I work with a graduate student. It's not that I'm going to teach the graduate student in the same way as a graduate student, but I'm going to like take some ideas, some little bits of things that I learned when working with one type of student, like one level of expertise, and be able to transfer some of that or not into different contexts. So there's no silver bullets with teaching, which is one of the things that, like, as an educator, I get frustrated with. Is like, well, if you just do this one thing, your classroom is going to be great. Not really. Like, every student is going to learn differently. So the more that you teach, the more context that you teach in. Like, if you teach in an ensemble setting versus private lesson settings, those can help you inform the other. And then if you teach other subject areas, that can also help. The better you're going to become as an educator if you're teaching in different ways and in different contexts, etc. So there's a ton of research on education and whatnot. So there's like some approaches that statistically are going to work better than others in different specific contexts. But again, teaching is not just like a delivery of instruction. It's also understanding like the different psychology of the individuals that you work with. So as an example, one of the things that I have a problem with is instructional design research. So in instructional design research, they talk about like, hey, we did the study and we found that if you present this kind of visual, it is going to be like 10% more likely or 10% more effective at teaching this concept than if you present this other type of visual. And like that is important to understand and all. But for me, one of the things that I preferred to focus more on was the educational psychology kind of research, because the people you are working with are all going to have different things to consider outside of just the content that you are teaching. And if you teach people from a holistic perspective, then this will help to make it so that they can like learn better and be in a better state of mind to be able to perform or whatever it is that you're trying to do. So for example, outside of like the chop side of things that you might work with students on, there are other things on the mental side of things related to practicing that you might be able to help a student with. So even if a student can out-chop you, you could help them with developing their attention or improving their mindset or developing better consistency with their performing or their practice habits or healthy recovery routines, etc. So there's like many things outside of just being able to play something fast that you can help them out with. So for example, I listened to an interview with a Blue Devils instructor, and I forget who it was because I listened to it a few years ago. So apologies for not remembering it. But the person was talking about how at the level that they were teaching at, that they were spending more time focusing on managing personalities rather than like helping with like technique and whatnot. So they're trying to get people into a mindset to be able to perform at their best ability level rather than like showing them, hey, here's how you play this thing faster or cleaner or etc. So it was focusing on developing that consistency of that performing mindset at that high of a level that they are performing at, more so than like the fundamentals of like, well, how do you hold the stick, or what kind of a sound quality are we trying to achieve, etc., or how do we play this particular rudiment faster, whatever. So the idea of like a student out chopping you, well, therefore you have nothing to teach them, that is like a reductionist viewpoint of like, what is the purpose of education from my perspective as like a music educator and whatnot. So you can teach students how to teach themselves, which is something I mentioned like a couple days ago in the stream. So one of the ways that you can do this is an approach called constructivism, which if you apply it into like a lesson setting or into like an ensemble setting like drumline or whatever, you're focusing more on the long-term growth through analysis and reflection, the students' own analysis and reflection of their own playing and setting their own goals and like creating exercises, etc., rather than creating a reliance for you on as an educator. So for example, like when I was teaching in the K-8 coding classes, computer science classes, I was often like, because I was the district mentor, I was often like going out to other schools and like providing assistance to other teachers. I was presenting at conferences, etc. So it was like frequently not in my classroom, and there are substitutes in there. And so when students would come to me with a question, I would ask them a question in response. Even though I knew how to tell them to do the thing, I would try then to get to think through the steps that they would be able to solve whatever bug they had with their program on their own. And I've applied the same thing into different music classes as well, or ensembles or private lessons. Hey, we're having issues with flam drags and clarity. What are some exercises that we can come up with that would be able to help out with that, or whatever it is that you're working on? Let's come up with 3 different ways that you could do this as a group, as a collective, and I'm going to use some like different questions to help guide you towards some paths that you could take. So that way, if I'm not here to teach you, whether it's because I'm like teaching at another school or whatever, that way they can work on their own. It's the same thing with like when students are practicing at home, like you want them to be able to figure out like, what do I need to do to be able to get to the next level, etc. Like as opposed to, well, I have to wait until like my next lesson next week or in 2 weeks in order to be able to like actually improve on this thing, so they can start to make that individual growth and whatnot. So some of the kinds of questions that you can ask is like along a continuum. So you can go from like closed to guided to more open questions. So like a closed question might be something like, was the second note early or late? It's like a yes or no. And then it could be like, okay, well, how is the consistency of the diddle interpretation? So that's more like a guided, where you're trying to focus on the diddles, but you're not necessarily giving them like a yes or no binary answer, etc. And then you can move more towards an open question, which you could ask the student, be like, what did you notice about that rep that we just played? And they might not even talk about diddles. They might talk about something completely different, and that can open up some potential conversations around like mindset. Like, oh, I realized that I started focusing on like a conversation that I had with a friend yesterday, and it messed up my roles. And it's like, oh, well, we don't need to talk about interpretation. We need to talk about focus and etc. So it's not that like open questions or guided questions are the right way to do it. It's just a continuum that you need to be able to draw upon as an educator to be able to figure out like how to help guide students, so that way they can come up with like their own exercises, their own answers, their own reflections, their own analysis of their playing, etc. So again, you can help them to be able to learn long term as opposed to just providing the answers for them. This is all stuff that you can do even if a student is able to out-chop you. So like as an example, I had a marimba student who got to a point where they were playing a piece better than I could play that particular piece. Thank you for the sub, appreciate it. And so the student ended up getting into like Berkeley on a scholarship for playing marimba, and they were able to do that even though like I couldn't play that particular piece at that level that they were doing it. So I was using more guiding questions and self-reflection and analysis and talking about the meta of the musicianship rather than like some of the individual nitty-gritty. Although we did that too, but that's besides the point. So there's more to musicianship is what I'm trying to say than just like chops or speed. So as another example of this, when I was a student, is the drum set professor at Arizona State University, got some lessons with him, and I could out-chop him as a rudimental drummer. That was what I focused on, was playing fast and like being able to do like complex rudimental stuff. But everything he played on drum kit sounded amazing. Like just the basic groove pattern just like bopped. Like I could not do that. So even though I might be able to play like rolls faster or singles faster or whatever, out-chop him technically, everything he played sounded better than I could do. It didn't matter about the speed that I was doing or could play it at. there's just so much more to musicianship than just being able to play fast, which is something that like more beginner and intermediate people focus on, is that like, ugh, I hit drum fast. Like, especially if you're, well, I won't call out any genres, but a lot of beginner and intermediate players are just like, I just want to be able to do that really fast. Cool. There's more to musicianship in drumming than just that, but if you want to focus on that, that's great. Maybe we'll also learn these other things down the road. Now I want to shift it so that we talk about like the perspective from an educator standpoint. So when I was in a position where I was teaching somebody who had more advanced understanding of a topic than I did. So as an educator, I was a doctoral dissertation supervisor. So I was working with somebody who is getting their doctorate in music education. And as their supervisor, I am helping guide them on their dissertation process in terms of like their understanding of the content and knowledge, but also the research methodology that they are using. So while I have expertise in like the topics that I have been studying for years and the methodologies that I have used in the various research that I've done for like my dissertation or for some of the NSF grants that I've done, etc. Sometimes you will work with people at a level who are going to develop like an area of expertise in a content area or in a research methodology that is different than your own as a supervisor. And so you have to be able to figure out some ways to be able to work with them to help them develop that expertise while doing this. So let me see this real quick. I'm looking at my notes, sorry. Yeah, okay, so that we did there. So overall, I knew like the meta of research in the field, etc., but I did not have the specific expertise in the area that they were studying for their dissertation. So to get more granular with it, they were doing a study on perspectives of what it meant to be a musician when you were composing music through code. And so while I had perspectives of like the music education background and I had taught computer science, I did not have that expertise in identity development and whatnot. So I had to be able to like ask some questions to understand that the student that I was working with knew their stuff and knew that what they were talking about, and to be able to assist them with being able to improve in the areas that they were researching for their particular dissertations. Sometimes you have to consult outsiders to be able to help with that. So I was an outsider who was asked to work with Boston University to be able to teach that particular student and work with them, supervise them, collaborate with them, etc. Because I had the expertise of the music education background research and then the computer science education research and that combination of them and whatnot, they asked me to work with them. But I still had areas where it's like, oh, I'm not an absolute expert in that thing that you're doing. So the more you teach, the more you will see how other people are learning and what works with them, and the more comfortable you will likely be when working with those people who also have areas of expertise that you do not have, and you'd still be able to like supervise, guide, etc., even though you don't have that expertise that they have. Well, hello on YouTube. Okay, so now I want to talk like meta, so like expertise landscape. So imagine you're looking at like out at a giant landscape. On the flat horizon, what you see is your understanding of the field. So if you're like scanning out along this way, you might see some mountains, like just a couple mountains. You might see some hills, you see some plains, and you see some lakes. So each one of these can be used as like a metaphor for what it means to develop expertise in a field as like an educator, as a performer, or whatever. So the one or two mountains that you end up seeing are the tall things where you are an expert in, or a student is an expert in. That is like this is what I am known for, and am an expert able to do above and beyond what most people can do. You also will see some like hills off in the distance. This is where you are above average with like your abilities as a performer. Like I am above average on marimba, but I am not an expert on marimba. So for me, some of my hills might be like some of the concert percussion stuff, but some of my mountains might be marching snare drum, where I have a lot of expertise working on. Now, the plains, when you're looking at the flat grounds, that is where you're just like an average musician, you just kind of, or educator. You are at the same level as like most people who are actively like working on this. But then there are the lakes. So the lakes are what you don't know yet. You don't know how deep the water is in the lake. It might just be like shin height or knee height, or it might be like super deep. So that's the areas of expertise that you don't have yet. What you need to be able to learn is how to get comfortable with seeing that landscape and understanding how you fit in it and how your landscape is going to be different than other people's. They're going to have other different kinds of mountains. Thank you for the sub. They're going to have other different kinds of hills, and they're going to have other different kinds of lakes. But what you don't see is how deep that lake is for them. So when you get into the higher levels of developing expertise on something, there will be people who are going to outperform you in a lot of different areas. That's normal. That's going to happen. But they're also going to have a lot of deficits that you're not able to necessarily see or notice. And that's also normal. So a lot of people will get that like imposter syndrome where they like assume, oh, I'm the only one who has these lakes with like a lot of depth that I don't understand, but everybody does. The higher up you go and the more you like have heartfelt conversations with people who are at like high performing levels or high teaching levels or whatever, they're all in the same boat. Not everybody is just like peak after peak after peak after peak of expertise. We all have deficits because the amount of time that it takes to actually develop an expertise in either performing or teaching or whatever is going to take time away from other things. So for example, if I wanted to work on like improving my like single speed, the amount of time that I invest into improving my single speed is going to take away time from, I don't know, working on like 4-mallet, like Stevens grip, etc. And vice versa. If I'm going to work on Stevens grip, it's going to make me worse on this. So like when I was in a percussion studio, during my undergrad, there were people who could play stuff on marimba that I was like, how on earth are you doing that? But then you give them a pair of sticks and like I could outplay them out the wazoo. And it's not that one is better than the other. It's just that you've developed different types of expertise. And it's the same thing for the students that you're going to work with. Sometimes the students that you're going to be teaching will have different mountains and different hills and different lakes, different deficits of understanding than you do. And that's just normal. So as you teach more, you'll realize that like it's more of a collaborative process when you are working with them, or at least hopefully it can be. So one, learn how to be comfortable with like not knowing things, but two, develop processes to be able to figure things out together. So for example, when I taught in the computer science space, sometimes a student would ask a question where I'd be like, oh, I actually don't know how to solve that bug, or I don't know how to do that thing. And so we would collaborate together and be able to figure out. And then I would be able to help a student in the future with that similar kind of bug or et cetera. So it's not this like one directional top down, I am the all knowing educator and you peon know nothing. That's not how education should work, in my opinion, from my philosophy of education. It should be much more of a collaboration with feedback from the student and from the educator, where you can both learn from each other. Now, this isn't to say that like education and educators like should teach at all levels. Like if you're teaching kindergarten, that doesn't mean that like you're all of a sudden going to be qualified to work with somebody at the doctoral level. There is research on like the different stages of educators and different kinds of educators you have in different phases of your level of expertise. So if you're going from beginner to intermediate to advanced to pro, you might have different types of educators along this process. So for example, the research indicates that when you're a beginner, educators who make things more fun and exciting are going to be better fit for most of the beginner students that you're working with. And when you get to the more intermediate and advanced stuff, it's more about refining your playing rather than just making things fun. And when you get to the professional level, it's going to be more about pushing beyond the limits, etc. If you are an educator who can do all of those different areas, then what you can end up doing is you can adapt to those different situations. So like the way that I taught elementary school was vastly different than the way that I taught graduate school, but they informed the other. So it's not like there's like one way to teach. It's the same thing with like teaching privately. When I was teaching privately, I'd be like, I will adapt my teaching to whatever your needs are as a student. So if you need some assistance with this thing and you like to be like pushed, or you like to be motivated with like just like doing fun things, playing fun pieces, or like me being stricter on you, not in like a mean way or anything, but like having higher expectations for you than you do for yourself, every student's different. So you need to be able to adapt to them, which is what makes teaching like difficult if you're doing it in a group setting. When I was teaching privately, that was so easy to do those adaptations. But when you're working with like a class with like 30 some odd students in there and you have to teach them all 30 different ways, good luck with that. There are some ways to do that, but that's a whole nother answer for a whole different topic that I've written out about before. Check out the publications on my website. It's free. Talking about like affinity spaces and whatnot, that talks about how I did that in music education and computer science education context, but that's a whole different can of worms, etc. Now, if you are an educator and you're unwilling to adapt for each one of the students that you're working with, or you're like not willing to develop the expertise that is needed to teach at a particular level, then there will be moments where you're going to have to refer students to somebody else who might be a better fit. So if you're not willing to like have fun while teaching, then maybe don't teach beginners. Refer those beginners out to somebody else. Or if you're not willing to teach in a way that pushes students beyond their limits, you just want to have fun, maybe don't work with the advanced students or with the pros. You got to be able to figure out what you are willing to do as an educator to be able to assist the students that you are working with at different types of levels, different phases in their own journey through musicianship. Now, I will say that you can develop expertise not only from doing the thing, but also learning from other people who have done it before you. So you can learn their perspectives on performing or teaching. So this might sound obvious, but if you're going to teach, you need to develop your teaching abilities. I've seen way too many like really good performers who ignored pedagogy, which is like the art or styles of like teaching and different approaches that you can take. And those people who ignore that kind of stuff, they fail as educators. They just assume, well, I can play fast, so therefore like students need to figure it out. No, that's not how that works. Like, you're going to fail. I promise you. I've seen so many professors like across like many different instruments and whatnot who like are the absolute world expert on whatever the subject area is, and they are terrible at teaching that thing. So please invest some time into teaching, or you will fail your students. Just trying to be as blunt as possible, but that is going to happen if you do not learn how to teach better. So there's different ways that you can learn how to do this. So you can learn from other educators on other instruments, and you can ask questions like, okay, well, I'm a percussion instructor, but I see this like violinist who is I don't know, performing, and they start to teach a concept. Well, what are they teaching and what are they not teaching? Why are they teaching that particular way as opposed to another way? How are they teaching it this way? What is the steps that they're going through when doing this? How else might you teach this particular concept? So it doesn't have to just be percussionist, and you don't have to just look at the content area that is being taught, but you can also look at the ways that they are doing it. So as an example, like when I watch a percussion video, most of what I see in percussion videos I've heard before because I'm old. I've been doing this for a long time. But the ways that they are teaching it are sometimes unique or different or not the way that I would do it. And I ask myself, well, why are they doing it that way as opposed to another way? Is it an intentional thing, or do they not know other ways to do it, etc.? And I'm able to learn from not just the content area, but the ways things are taught. And you as an educator can do that as well. And you'll learn these different perspectives on how to be able to work with different kinds of students, some of whom might be able to outchop you and some of whom might be beginners, etc. But also learn beyond music educators. So like when I did Muay Thai, which is basically like kickboxing, the instructors in there were really good. And the way that they like broke down like the mechanical motions for like if you're going to elbow somebody like in the eyebrow, I was like, wow, I can actually apply the way they are teaching that into like how I talk about like different stroke types or whatever. So like, don't just look at other music educators teaching different types of instruments or percussionists teaching percussion instruments. Also look beyond that. There are some phenomenal educators that you can learn from in different fields. You can learn from like kinesiology, sports psychology, etc. These are all things that I have also tried to invest time into because they're directly applicable to like drumline and teaching percussion, etc. Another thing that you can do as an educator to try and improve, to be able to work with the advanced students, etc., is engage in some self-recovery. Well, that too. Engage in self-reflection and analysis. So after each one of your lessons, whether it's like a private lesson or like teaching an ensemble or whatever, ask what worked and what can you do to improve it for next time. So if you strive for that consistent improvement, you will get better over time. Like it's taken me a long time to improve as an educator. I've been teaching since 2003. And in the multiple decades that I've been teaching, I've been constantly iterating. Every single like year, I'm just getting better and better and better and trying to be able to work with more different kinds of students, different contexts, different subject areas, etc. And so that can be the same thing for you. So if you are at like a level 2 educator right now, well, maybe next year you'll be at level 3, and then maybe 5 years from now you'll be at like level 5, etc. So just keep trying to improve, and don't beat yourself up if you're not able to like teach at the level that you want to right now. It's going to take time, especially if you're comparing yourself to like people who have been around for a very long time, have been teaching for a long time. You're like, I want to do that. Well, cool. They've been doing it for like 2 decades longer than you have. So, invest the time into that. Sorry, reading the notes real quick. Oh, and again, just to reiterate this because it's very important, regardless of if the student overall knows more or less than you, it is a collaborative process where both of you can learn from it. I have taught kindergartners that I have learned something from, either about like how to teach or even a content area that where I've been like, oh, I didn't know that. And then odds are the kindergartner has learned more from me, but it's still a collaborative process. You can both learn from each other. So I think that's important to re-emphasize throughout this. Anyways, that was a question that I got. That was a fantastic question on one of my videos. And so I wanted to take like a couple days to like sit through that and provide a response. That's probably more than they were hoping for. I've now talked about it for over 30 minutes. But hopefully that answers the question. And if it does not answer the question in the way that you're hoping for, then just let me know and I can obviously rant about things some more. But again, here's where you can find like all the other stuff. But because I've been like ranting for so long, and I want to make sure that I have time to finish Ghost of Yote today, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to like chop out today. So I'm going to play just for fun, and then we'll get back into like the triplet diddle inverted variation. But in case you're like, well, what is an inverted triplet diddle? I'll just show you where that's at. So if you're on my home tab of YouTube, you go to the technique section here and you click on this and you scroll down a bunch and you go into either the triplet diddle variations or the 16th note diddle variations. There's a ton of roll exercises in here. And what you'll notice is that we've got like a 2-count version and then 2 counts without a check. So it's just a cold right into it. And then it's got an inverted 2-count variation. Same thing with the 4 counts. So we're doing triplet diddle with 4 counts and inverted triplet diddle with 4 counts. Now the exercise, it's the exact same rhythm, but you're displacing it by playing a single note on like the right hand and then playing the double stroke. So for example, this roll right here is a single right hand and then left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right. It's not a tap roll like where it's got like that pause. It's an immediate that ends with a double right. It's weird, but it's a great way to work on the feeling that second note of the diddle, and you'll see if you actually try going through that. But because that answer ended up taking like half of the normal stream, what I'm going to do instead is just go into the chop section, and we'll just have fun just kind of like chopping out. So I'll play for a few reps, and then I'll stretch and massage, and then I'll play some more chop stuff for fun. So let's get our hands warmed up, because all I've been doing is talking. What do I want to play? Let's do Velvet Knight's 5/4 shopping spree. There's 29 shopping sprees in this particular playlist, and you'll notice I had to click the header to expand to show all these playlists. But I'm going to do the Velvet Knight's shopping spree. And in all these thousands of like play-alongs, just go into the timestamps in the description, and you can go to whatever speed you want. So I'm going to do this at 100. We'll get the hands going. Turn up the volume. And then I'll stretch and massage. Whoa! Nah, I can't speed it up. Not if I play like that. You like this spree? This is probably my favorite. There's like 28 more sprees in this particular playlist, but this one's probably my favorite. So what's interesting about this, one, it's in 5/4, which most are in 12/8. So this is an interesting feel. But the groupings of 5, it takes the flam drags and it turns them into what's called float flam drags, as in like Tom Float, former instructor for Velvet Knights, Blue Devils, etc. Caption head. So the float variations put an extra diddle on 4, And so this is a float flam drag. This is a float cheese. This is float 5. So flam drags that are float. Cheeses. As I hit my microphone, so sorry. So I try and raise it up. And then flam 5s. So those are float variations. You can also do like float chut cheeses. There's a lot of, ooh, what's that? There's a lot of fun stuff that you can do. But if this is too fast for you, don't worry. This particular play along goes as slow as 20. So you can play it way slower than this, every BPM in between. Since I'm just warming up here, haven't played today, let's just go up by 5s until my arms are like, hey, you need to stretch or massage. And then we'll get into that. It won't be too long from now. Flawless. Quick question about the DCI audition process. Sorry, I want to remember what BPM to go to. Is there a core that has a full quad section that hasn't aged out? I don't know. That is a good question, but I don't know is my answer to it. Some ways that you could figure out an answer to that is to like reach out to instructors or reach out to alumni or like people who are currently in it, etc. to find out. But yeah, I'm not sure. I know there's like I don't want to like waste my time going to a place where I'm not going to have a spot. But even if you do like audition for them, you will learn a lot through that process, which is great. But like sometimes, like you're mentioning, whether it's for the DCI auditions, WGI auditions, or even like admissions into like universities, sometimes they don't have spots open for like percussion programs in the studio or like scholarships available. Like when I got my like full ride, I got it because there was one available. But if I had the exact same audition and they didn't have like a spot open, I wouldn't have even gotten into the program. Like that's just how it works. So same thing for like the college auditions, for WGI, for DCI auditions. But yeah, I'd triangulate multiple different people. But that being said, if there's like a group that you really want to get into, sometimes just showing up, even when like the hopes of you getting it, like of them taking somebody who is not marched with that group versus taking like 5 veterans, they're likely going to take the 5 veterans who have all demonstrated they can do it. But if you're there and you're showing that you can hang at that level, that kind of gets your foot a little bit wedged in the door in terms of being able to demonstrate like your attitude to learn, your desire to play at that level, etc. And they get to like know who you are and get that personality going. And that can also open up some doors of like, hey, tenor tech, I would really like to continue to study with you after the end of this audition. And so that way they can see your like improvement over months, etc., as opposed to just that one shot of an audition. But yeah, the answer to the specific question is I don't know, but hopefully that like provides a little bit of a framework for ways that you could like look long term with it, if that makes sense. Good question though. Let's hit drum fast. Go. Let's go up a few more. This might be my breaking point since I haven't stretched or massage yet. 115. You're probably looking to reaching out some instructors. Good, good. You're very welcome. Good question. Thank you for asking it. As always, good questions. Okay, let's stretch and massage. So, by the way, if you're just tuning in, go to the home tab. It's in the chop section, that particular one that I was doing. So you just click on the header for any of these thousands of like drumming videos. Just keep scrolling down. There's more. This is just the chop stuff. But the one that I'm working on is in the shopping sprees playlist, and is all the way at the bottom. Is the Velvet Knights 5/4 shopping spree. But there's a lot of really cool ones in here that I highly recommend checking out. Let's stretch and massage. It's important to take care of your hands. First stretch that I'm doing stretches the sides of the forearms. Ooh, it feels good. Yeah, to elaborate on what I mentioned with like your good question and the fact that we spent over 30 minutes responding to one question about like whether you can and how to teach somebody who is better than you. I have been really enjoying the questions that I've been getting in these streams, so, and the comments on the videos, so thank you very much. Appreciate it. This one is stretching the underside of the forearm. So you could do it like this, which just does it one at a time. Or if you do it on the pad, it allows you to do it two at a time. Or on the wall, the lower you go, the deeper the stretch. Just don't put all your weight into it. But yeah, it's cool, like getting these good, nuanced questions over the last few months. So I really appreciate everybody who's been asking them. Thank you. We're able to talk about more than just like, what is a flam? Not that there's anything wrong with those kinds of questions. It's just like, there's more that we can talk about with pedagogy, that we can talk, just like how you teach, but also like how to play, etc. So this one, you could do on your leg. You could do on the wall. The higher you go, the deeper the stretch. I'm going to do it on the pad. Again, don't put all your weight into it. And then the final stretch is finger to finger. So thumb to thumb. It goes twice as fast. Whee! Then I'm going to do a quick massage routine, and then we'll get back into just chopping out. But actually, I'll be right back in a minute. All right, cool. Sorry about that. Oh, still massaging. Okay, so this one's massaging the forearm, so I'm just kind of working my way up and down the arm. And then we'll massage the hand, and then the fingers, and then we'll just chop out a little bit more. Less drumming today, but that first question took over 30 minutes to answer. So it happens. As you can tell, I have lectured before. All right, massaging the palm with the thumb, and then the fingers massaging the backside of the hand. Switch hands. Do this every day. Stretch and massage routine. Keep your hands healthy so that you too can drum when you're old. This last one is massaging base the tip of each one of the fingers at least twice. Maybe thrice. Depends on how your fingers are feeling. You might do more. Okay. Since we were there, let's get to the chop out point with this, just for fun. So this again is Velvet Knight's 5/4 spree. So we just did it at 115. Let's see if I can do it at 120. Probably not. We'll find out. Wish me luck. I think I might be able to squeeze through 125. Or my arms will burst into flames. We'll find out. Today's episode of Talk a Lot, Hit Drum Fast. All right, 125. By the way, the BPMs that end with a 0 or a 5 give you this few seconds to get yourself set up. All the other ones just immediately tap off. Too fast, too furious. Well, that was definitely the breaking point on that last line. I love this one. If you like it too, but that's too fast for you, again, you can go as slow as 20. What does 20 sound like? Yeah, those are quarter notes. Here's the actual. It's fun, right? I'd start at 40, but if you want to play it at 20, do it. You can find it. Home tab, click. Go down, chops. Click on any one of these sections, any one of them, and it shows you more playlists. But the chops one is where I'm at. Let's play another shopping spree. Let's do... This one is a unique one. It's quite the chop burner. It's very long. So what's happening with this particular exercise is you're playing like a normal stock shopping spree. So this is kind of like Impulse back in the day shopping spree, where you do flam drags, then you do cheeses, 4 counts of each. Flam 5s, cheddar-cha, inverts, cheese cheddar-cha, cheese inverts, and then chut cheeses. That was like the standard shopping spree that we learned. But page 2 is this. So on page 2, you do all of those rudiments again, but instead of 4 counts, you do 2 counts. So 2 counts of check, 2 counts of drags. Check, cheeses, check, 5s, etc. And then you do 1 count. So it's doing these rudiments off the left. So chugga-da-chut-da-da-da, into a flam drag. Cha-da-da, here's your check, into a cheese, into a 5. Cha-da-cha, invert gets a little weird because it's 5/8. Cheese, cha-da-cha, cheese, invert, again is 5/8. Chut, cheese. And then the 0 is just like the 1, except there's no check. So it's 1 count of each rudiment. So, or 1 instance of it. So flam drag, cheese, 5, cha-da-cha, invert, cheese, cha-da-cha, cheese, invert, chut, cheese. And then that ends on the right hand. Now, just like any of the other thousands of play-alongs, you can go at whatever BPM you want. I'm going to do it, I don't know, 110? Sure. We'll see. Don't have time. Barely. Cheeses. Glam fives. Chudda-chas. Inverts. Cheese inverts. Chut cheese. 2 counts, flam drags. 2 counts, cheeses. Flam fives. Chudda-cha. And it looks like the stream disconnected for a moment there. Okay, so that is the exercise for the parts that you were able to potentially see. It looks like the stream may have disconnected again. Nice. Streamlabs, you're doing great. So proud of you. So glad to have my stream disconnect multiple times. Anyways, we'll just keep hitting drum. 120. Hi. Two counts. One count. Chut cheese at the end was a little just 130. Go. Oh, I was early. Chut cheese at the end was a little high. Unsub. my stick, like, the bead hit, and then the stick, like, went under my thumb, which is why I got, like, wonky for a second. It's like, try playing a flam drag with, like, your thumbs on top. It's very weird. Don't recommend it. But that's what happened there. I'm so sorry. I apologize. I will stop drumming. 150. Stream disconnected again. Nice. Oh. Whoops. Whoa. I'm like, I was too in my head looking at, so the YouTube vertical broken. It's like just, it keeps got the spinning wheel. And then Instagram, which is also vertical, fine. But then the YouTube horizontal, fine. So like in my head, I was like, what is going on? Like, why is it like 1 out of the 3 is messed up? And so my head was there, my mental thoughts, and I screwed up. Whoops. Now I'm going to screw up because I'm playing too fast. 160. Here we go. Wish me luck. Go. Ooh, way early. Nope. Too fast. I can't. Not today. Not today. Okay. Good questions again today. And I had fun chopping out, but I'm going to go back to my home tab. If you want to find this play along, again, it's under the chop section. You have to click on the header to show the playlist I was using. And it's in the shopping sprees one. That one was 4210. But the first one that I played was the Velvet Knights 5-4 spree. But there's 29 sprees in there. And there's like 4 more. Oh, and there's those other 2. I think there's like 6 more I'm adding soon. So stay tuned. Anyways, scroll down a little bit more. Grid variations. There's a lot of them. Over 1,000 of them. Limb independence. I'm going to practice that tomorrow. And then there's marching bass stuff. If you do marching bass, there's drumline cadences. There's sight reading stuff. There's a ton of technique stuff. And there's over 16 hours of tips, like the question that I answered earlier. But these are edited, so they are shorter, which is going to take me a while to edit today's stream. Yikes. But just click on the header for any one of these sections and it expands. Now, if you see any video that says members first, you're going to find about 600 of them. So there's quite a few. They're all scheduled to release for free. So, for example, the sight reading stuff comes out November of next year. I'm really far ahead on creating these play-alongs, but there's at least 1, sometimes 3 that are releasing every single day. So stay tuned for them to come out. But if you want the early access to it, any of those members first videos is 99 cents. This is the cheapest tier that I can make it possible. But you just click join, and then you get all like 600-ish videos available to you. The other tier options are the exact same thing. It's just a different level of support. But what I really ask if you want to support is just share this content with somebody else. So if you enjoy any of the thousands of free resources on my YouTube channel, or if you go to the link at the top of the description where it has it organized neater on my website /drum up there, If you enjoy these free resources, share it with somebody else. And then if you don't enjoy it, share it with an enemy. It still helps me. But anyways, I'm going to get ready for Ghost of Yote. So I'm actually going to beat that game today. That's the plan, at least. I think it'll be about 2.5 hours left for that. But again, thank you for the questions, and not only live, but also on the comments, on the videos. I do appreciate it. I hope I can help by answering the questions or creating or pointing towards some free resources for you. But I'm rambling here. So I hope you have a good rest of your day, and goodbye.